Let's bring in criminal defense attorney Jenna Finkelstein, who is back joining us from outside the courthouse in Florida. So, Jenna, before this trial, have you heard of the 21-foot rule?
Good afternoon, Seema. I can't say that I have.
Okay, well, earlier today, the jury saw Michael Drake's police interview where he described what happened outside the Circle A food store on July 19th, 2018.
Payment?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was on the ground.
So-
From that time, I had to put hand down to get hand out from underneath. As I come out, I start drawing my weapon. As I start leveling off my weapon, he makes his next step towards me, and 21-foot rule. I'm on the ground already.
Right. Okay.
It happened so fast, and that was that.
Did he say anything to you?
Negative. Not a word.
Okay. Did you say anything to him?
No.
Like back up? Or?
No.
So, Jenna, we didn't really think that what Drake was saying was actually real until the use of force expert gave it some validity. Let's take a listen to, this is Roy Bedard, and this was from his testimony earlier today.
I noticed a lot of what I like to refer to as jargon police talk, things that law enforcement officers say. For example, in one case, he used the term 21-foot rule. That's something that has been talked about and studied in law enforcement circles for 30 years. It's unusual for average people to know about that. He used a concept, I think, called force multiplier, typically a military term, but it did catch my ear because my curiosity is what kind of training background he might have that he would be speaking in this kind of language. I don't remember if he used the term force continuum, but it occurred to me during the interview that that's actually, in one respect, what I think he was referring to.
When you said force multiplier, maybe you thought he was referring to force continuum?
Yes.
Jenna, is that something you see a lot in Florida, these use of force experts? Because it's pretty rare that they're called to testify.
No, yeah, it is something that kind of surprised me watching that they were admitted to testify and that the state called them. I think he was helpful and I think he was a good witness, but no, it's certainly not something that we see very often. Maybe from a consulting standpoint, somebody that an expert you consult with in preparation for a trial or looking into a case, but as far as testimony at trial in front of a jury, not very common, no.
What confounds me about this testimony is that the whole idea of being aggressive or the whole idea of self-defense, right? It is the subjective view. So how do I feel in this moment, right? And then the jury has to look at the surrounding circumstances and say, well, is it reasonable that Seema in that position would feel that way? So in what way does this use of force expert help or hurt the prosecution? You said helpful, so what did you find?
Well, I think it's helpful because it's painting a picture for the jury of, some people might not be familiar with firearms or use of force or tactics that are used for self-defense. So I think that it's helpful in that sense of maybe giving them, like teaching a class. Like Chanley said earlier, he was kind of giving a class to the jury of what things they look at and what use of force tactical strategies are out there. So I think it was helpful in that sense. Helpful in a sense of getting a conviction. I can't say that it would be. He can't make an opinion about whether or not Michael Drake was justified in his use of force. So I don't think it really changes the state's position or the defense's position as far as what was justified per this case and what Michael Drake was actually seeing and feeling and thinking at that time.
I thought it was a very intellectual approach to the phrase, you don't bring a gun to a knife fight, right? And, just like bringing it down to like a street level perception, because he showed all the levels and he said, okay, if there's like a level 1 threat, then you don't respond with a level 5. Or if it's a level 2, you don't respond with a level 5. So I thought that was compelling.
Right.
And I also thought was equally compelling is when he discussed our reactionary times, that it takes 0.18 to 0.25 seconds to perceive something. And then he almost did like an equation, frame by frame, looking at the video between McGlockton and Draca, and then calculating how many seconds, which I believe it was over 1 second. So how much time it would have taken Draca to perceive something and respond. And I thought, and I want to know your opinion, that sent a message to the jury that Draca's response was inappropriate given all the surrounding circumstances.
Right. I think that's the purpose of the state putting on this expert, again, to educate them. But mostly what they're getting out of this as far as bolstering their case is this wasn't reasonable. He shouldn't have reacted that way. If he's somebody who knows all these rules and is trained, that reaction time, he had time to make a different decision. But I think it kind of can work both ways because 1.5 seconds is not that long. So if the defense uses it correctly, I think they can take this testimony and certainly use it in their favor.
I think it depends, right? I think it depends because I think to some people 1.5 seconds would be long enough to digest the information. But you're bringing up an excellent point, especially now we are in the precipice of a defense case. Should the defense call a use of force expert?
I don't know, because I don't know what their expert would say that's different. I mean, I guess if they have somebody on board that's going to say something to rebut, what the state's expert said and to say he's wrong, I don't know how much fuel that will have as far as what the jury will think. And you always, it's a danger when you get into a battle of the experts. You guys paid one expert, we paid another expert. They come in here, they're both highly qualified and have different opinions, and they kind of cancel each other out.
Yeah, it is certainly a dangerous game we play, Jenna Finkelstein. Thank you so much. Our gavel-to-gavel coverage of Florida versus Draca continues at the top of the hour.